Hey, everybody, welcome to Fictionology. This is Gideon.
And this is Bardikens.
We're coming to you live from a brand new undisclosed bunker deep in the heart of COVID territory, trying to ride out this quarantine in style. And the quarantine is stretching on and on and on and on. So we'll probably be here a while. Yes, and on, indeed. But that's good because Lucasfilm has decided to gift us with something to make the quarantine just a little bit easier, at least in theory. And that's the second season of The Mandalorian. Isn't that right, Bardikens?
That's right. And we took a look at it, I believe, last month with the trailer reaction.
We sure did.
And,
was that was the trailer with the Jedi apprentice who's using the ancient technique of Force crouch, right, behind the boxes?
Yes.
That trailer?
Yes, that's right. Force hiding behind boxes.
Gotcha. It's an ancient and esoteric technique.
Yes.
But yeah, the premiere. We did a deep dive into it. We definitely have some opinions on the matter, and they're fresh, they're raw. They may be a little incoherent because we actually just got finished watching the video. So we'll be processing it and articulating it to you all at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. And then I don't think this will take that too much longer than usual. So
now, I know we did a brief recap, I think, during the trailer. It may behoove us to do an even briefer recap for this one. First season of The Mandalorian, it takes place a few years after Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. The Empire was defeated at the Battle of Endor. Darth Vader was redeemed. The second Death Star was destroyed. And the Emperor, as far as everyone knows, is defeated as well. The victorious Rebel Alliance has become a fledgling new republic. The Imperial remnants are kind of scattered throughout the galaxy, but they're definitely no longer in power. And into this uncertain world, we get the titular Mandalorian, played by Pedro Pascal of Game of Thrones fame, the Red Viper, Prince Oberyn. He's just, I can't remember the exact quote from Attack of the Clones that Jango Fett says, but something, just a man trying to make his way in the universe. And he's a bounty hunter in the employ of the Bounty Hunters Guild. And he comes into possession of a mysterious target, what we affectionately call Baby Yoda, but what the Star Wars canon has currently referred to as the Child. A mysterious Force user of the same species as the great late Grandmaster Yoda.
May he rest in peace.
May he rest in peace. Until we see him in Star Wars The Last Jedi, where he's able to trigger lightning strikes and dispense some additional wisdom to an older, grizzled Luke Skywalker. But again, we'll set all that aside. And basically, the entire first season is about this unlikely, bond between the Mandalorian and the Child, and the Mandalorian's efforts to protect the Child from, remnant Imperial forces. Along the way, he encounters a motley crew of sidekicks, ranging from Cara Dune, who's played by Gina Carano, I think she was an ex-UFC fighter, who's kind of made her foray into acting. She's a former New Republic soldier. She has since retired and gone to bounty hunting herself. I think Carl Weathers plays the Mandalorian's his bounty hunter guild attaché, Grief Karga. Nick Nolte played some sort of weird alien with a gravelly voice whose name is actually escaping me.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Cooley, I can't remember.
Kool-Aid.
And then Kool-Aid, yes, Red Kool-Aid, the Kool-Aid Man.
Oh yeah.
And then,
and also whatever the Kool-Aid Man
yeah, whatever the
like.
Kool-Aid Man says. I'm sorry, that was a very poor impression. And then I can't remember the droid. I'm so bad with this. They had the kind of sociopathic droid who was his rival in the first episode, and then became kind of an unlikely ally at the end. And then, of course, my personal favorite, although his first appearance was a bit underwhelming, the guy who is set up to be he's probably going to be the big bad, I imagine, of this season and maybe the series writ large, which is Moff Gideon, played by the great Giancarlo Esposito from Breaking Bad and The Boys.
All right.
And I think when the season ended, the Fellowship had parted ways, so to speak. The Mandalorian and the child went off to parts unknown. The rest of the group dispersed, and the defeated but still very much alive Moff Gideon emerged majestically from his wrecked TIE fighter and violated every OSHA, standard and prescript, in existence by standing atop the wreckage so he could brandish the Darksaber menacingly.
Right. Instead of climbing out of the door, he cuts his way out with the Darksaber.
That's true. Like, that hatch was definitely functional. He was like, you know what? No, we're gonna cut our way through. And then, of course, he stood there for 12 hours while he waited for backup.
While he waited for Imperial Remnant OnStar.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, ding, 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 ding. We will be with you shortly. And that's where it ended. Other than the trailer, we went into this totally blind. And I don't want to speak for you, Bardikens, but I think the consensus was when we discussed the season 2 trailer. I didn't hate The Mandalorian first season.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I saw a lot of potential there. The budget, the aesthetics, the premise, all great. But I would just a very questionable execution, some cringy dialogue at times, and I don't think I still don't think it's emblematic of what Star Wars could be. But I remember us saying that we liked the spaghetti western feel and it being away from the the high stakes galactic scope conflict versus good versus evil, and it was just kind of the the fringe conflicts that are incited by the stuff that Luke Skywalker and Leia Organa and Han Solo, all the shenanigans they get into, it has ripple effects and
sure.
Major conflicts for other characters. So we like that premise, right? I mean, I did. Did you?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I thought that was some of the best parts of the first season of Mandalorian. Like I said, the big thing for me was the atmosphere, right? And then, of course, like you said,
was that like was that like a physics thing? When you say atmosphere?
Yeah, right. The different levels of the atmosphere.
He's a big fan of the just passing the clouds and going straight into the stratosphere and escape velocity and all that. Bardikens is a bit of a physics nerd. The metaphorical atmosphere was pretty good too.
Yes, I agree. That's what I like in shows like this. And well, I mean, you set up all of this, and basically none of it really matters for the first episode.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. The last 5 minutes have been a complete waste of everybody's time, and that's really what I'm here for.
Right, because the first episode, and we can go ahead and jump in it. First episode of Mandalorian is kind of, it still follows the quest that he was sent on by the armorer, and he mentions that several times. But
yes, repeatedly, I think verbatim the same damn line every time.
Other than that,
to return the child.
right.
I had to do
that.
No,
you're fine.
Yeah.
But other than that, other than his quest to return the child to its kind, it's basically a standalone style episode again.
Yeah, there's very little connective tissue. I mean, we don't see any of the supporting characters from the previous season, although the trailer shows them. So we will see them again, but there are no flashbacks. We don't have any cameos from any of the extant characters.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
The recap was totally useless. I mean, in a way, with the exception of the child, the episode could almost be seen as a soft reboot. It's not, but I mean, it could have been set up that way.
Well, I mean, and it does call back to the earlier episodes of season 1, definitely.
I have to make a correction now that I'm thinking about it. The mechanic, the lady mechanic.
Oh yeah,
in Tatooine, right. She was in the first season.
She was, right,
with the pit droids.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think we should go ahead and talk about the new episode, what we like about it, and then we can kind of finish off with what we don't like about it and what we look forward to. What do you think?
Sure. So should we do like a synopsis of the first episode or of the second season called The Marshal, aka as Bardikens and I referred to it throughout the duration of watching the episode, We Are Marshall, which is a sports film reference, and
it's a university, by the way.
Also that, yes, something useless. We're talking about stupid stuff now, like a university and colleges and all that. Yeah, long story short, the TL /DR version is the Mandalorian is on some sort of planet looking for information on, because he was quested to return the child to its own kind. Long story short, leads him right back to Tatooine. He goes to an allegedly abandoned, desolate town called I can't remember what it was. Not Moss Isley.
No, it started with
Moss
Moss
Pelga, whatever. Yeah, I think it's something like that. And
Pelgo.
I'm sorry,
Moss Pelgo.
Moss Pelgo. There we go. When he gets there, he finds that the town is certainly small, but it's not abandoned. It's people there are eking out a miserable existence, like literally everyone on Tatooine ever, which makes me wonder why the hell people are still there, but whatever.
Probably not by choice, but yes.
Probably not by choice, fair enough. He encounters the titular Marshal, whose name is not Marshall. He is the self-appointed sheriff of that little community. He is played by the great and charismatic actor Timothy Olyphant from the hit FX show Justified, Live Free or Die Hard, The Girl Next Door. He played a pimp in The Girl Next Door, from what I remember, which is one of my favorite rom-coms. It's very sweet. Great actor, charismatic, also hilarious in interviews. You guys should watch anytime he's on Conan O'Brien. He's hilarious. And he plays, again, the self-appointed sheriff of the town. He's wearing Mandalorian armor, and a specific set of Mandalorian armor at that. And Bardikens, do you want to reveal whose armor it is? I'll do a drum roll.
Chad's.
Yes. Chad Fett, a.k.a. Boba Fett. He has the dilapidated, battered armor of Boba Fett on his person. And the Mandalorian takes an interest in that because he thinks if he finds others of his kind, they can help guide him towards the child's kind, which he has been quested to find, so he can return the child to them. Their rivalry, the Marshal and the Mandalorian's rivalry over this piece of armor, is cut short by a much more menacing third party, a crate dragon, which many of you may recognize from Star Wars Legends continuity. What game did it play a role in?
I don't know if it's appeared in more than one, but I know it definitely appeared in, or at least you got some parts of it in KOTOR, right?
You're right. Knights of the Old Republic. Wait, wasn't it in Star Wars Galaxies too?
It may have been, but I never played Galaxies, so I don't know.
Gotcha. Okay, well,
but it was definitely in KOTOR because that's where you fought Bandon. Is that Bandon?
I think there was a star map in a cave or something
right,
like that. Right. Yeah. There you go. So it's a fixture. The Krayt Dragon is a recurring fixture, like of the bestiary in Star Wars, specifically on Tatooine, and it's been recanonized. This is the first time of which I'm aware that we've seen it on the big screen or the small screen or an A screen in canon. And basically they team up. The Marshal says, "Look, I'll give you the armor, but I'm supposed to protect this town. This creature's been terrorizing the town. I need your help to take it out." The Mandalorian agrees. Which is surprising because he could just shot the guy in the head and took the damn armor, which I was expecting at some point. And then, the rest of the episode concerns the Marshal and the Mandalorian's efforts to conquer the Krayt Dragon. Along the way, they encounter Tusken Raiders, who are also plagued by the Krayt Dragon and also have an investment in taking it down. And that's really what the episode's about.
Basically, yeah. The whole episode after that is just trying to kill the Krayt Dragon.
Yeah.
So let's think about some good things about the episode, because just right off the top of my head, I don't think the episode was bad at all.
No, I don't think so either. It may have been. It may have been the most entertaining one. But again, to be honest with you, I don't recall a standout episode of the first season of The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
So this is at least as good as any of the first season.
Sure. First thing I think of is the Western atmosphere again, right back into it. Right, you had the whole desert town on Tatooine, the sheriff, quote unquote, the marshal,
mm-hmm.
right? The tavern, it just didn't have the swinging doors on it.
Yeah. You almost waited for that missing. Tumbleweed to go by, and the swinging doors, and the weird.
So I really like that atmosphere, and it carries on what I really think the show does very well by making the Star Wars kind of universe more closer to something that we can relate to. Not that we can relate to an old Western town, but you see the moisture.
Speak for yourself. Carry on.
You see the moisture farming things, and when the crate dragon attacks, it knocks them over, and then you see people picking it up and repairing their stuff, and it's all dusty, and it just seems like a gritty but normal lifestyle in that sort of area. If you were, from that, it seems like you could live that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So for me, I think as far as the setting, I mean, I agree with you. I think, you and I are big flans, which is like a fan, a flan, which is like a fan, who is wearing flannel because we're approaching winter. I did it on purpose. I meant exactly what I said.
Sure.
Flan. We are flans of the great, cult classic TV show Firefly by Joss Whedon.
Right.
And Whedon was inspired very much by Star Wars, specifically Han Solo. And then, of course, he incorporated, aspects of American real world history, like the Civil War. But the bottom line is Star Wars is a franchise that lends itself well to many different types of stories and many different settings. And a spaghetti Western, I think, might be the most obvious one. And I agree with you. It captures the atmosphere and the aesthetic extremely well. You can't fault the budget. You can't fault the set design. Star Wars is pretty much an island unto itself with regard to that. And, I'll say this. So in the films, our experience with Tatooine, out of universe was in A New Hope, right? Because it came out in 1977. And you saw it through the eyes of young Luke and Ben Kenobi and all this. And then we saw it again in the prequels, a different view. It was a bastion of slavery, a stronghold of Jabba's through Anakin's story. And again, those are two cosmically important characters, Luke and Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing Tatooine through the lens of a character who currently and hopefully shall forever remain cosmically insignificant is really interesting, because even though it was a completely different city, it's not even a city, a settlement, really. I mean, it looked like an old school Western movie where it just had Main Street, and the buildings on either side, and that was it. It felt authentic. It felt like it looked different from Mos Eisley. It wasn't nearly as sprawling. But it also used the same visual language. So, it wasn't completely removed. And it made Tatooine feel bigger. And that's a single planet. And Star Wars is often guilty of making planets seem very small and single biome and all this and that. And so any chance that we get to look at old settings through new lenses, through new eyes, I think is of enormous benefit to the franchise.
Sure.
I don't think we should spend all of our time in pre-existing settings. I think we need to get out and see different areas, different planets, different biomes. But if we're going to go back, I think the storytellers have to straddle a line where it needs to feel familiar, but not identical. You need to have some familiarity, but you also need to offer the audience some new things. And I think The Mandalorian did that fairly well in this episode with Moss Pelgo.
Yeah, Pelgo. Yes.
Okay, sorry. I didn't feel committed. So I agree. I think that was a standout.
Yeah, no, and so I think that's great. What did you think of the special effects in the episode?
I mean, there again, I'm not gonna. You can't fault Star Wars, their special effects. It's clear that the show has an absurd budget. I think they do well with it, with both practical effects and also CGI, and more.
And blending them together as well.
Yeah, I think they do very well with that. But also, I think it also helps that they're not trying to show fleet battles between 72 capital ships, and dogfights
Right.
and all.
They don't
It
need.
is. Go ahead.
They don't need 200 large explosions when they can have just like a massive explosion, right? One massive explosion,
Right, like the one at the end, which I'm sure we'll get to. I thought that was beautifully staged. The cinematography was excellent. So yeah, I mean, I think all the way around, I'd give it A+ on the visuals, from cinematography to just the sheer set design and aesthetic.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it was very wonderful to look at. It was wonderful. You definitely don't want to live there, right? The atmosphere was great in that it's like, no, I'm fine in my house. I don't need to go live in Tatooine, right?
Right.
So, and with all the dangers, not just the Tusken Raiders when they're fighting each other, but also Krayt dragons and just two suns. So, no, thank you. I'm good.
Yeah. Well, it's like they say, every now and then two suns shine on a womp rat's tail.
Yeah, I had no idea. Okay,
I had no
okay.
idea.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Let's keep it positive for now.
Yeah.
Let's what else
again, I'll give other positive for me. Timothy Oliphant, like I said, he's a very charismatic actor. Justified was a great show. He was a great villain in an otherwise mediocre Die Hard installment, Live Free or Die Hard. He's got charisma, sense of humor, sense of menace. He can straddle all these things very well. And the character was interesting because I expected him to be a total douche. He wasn't, because I mean, usually Oliphant plays characters like that. He had a bit of roguishness to him, but otherwise he was one of the few supporting characters who wasn't, one of the main supporting characters that didn't try to screw Mando over. He honored his deal. He clearly wasn't interested in fighting him. He, even in the very beginning, when the two of them were towards a collision course towards one another, Mando was the aggressor. The Marshal wasn't going to back down. But he, when he went into the bar and he tried to get him to have a drink with him and negotiate with him, Oliphant gave him clues and body language indicators that he's like, look, man, I really don't want to fight you. I will if I have to, and I'll definitely try to kill you, and I'm not afraid of you, but I'm not the aggressor here. I'm a constable. I'm a sheriff. I'm a marshal. I'm here to protect the people here, and I really don't want trouble if we can avoid it. So that was an interesting line to straddle there. What did you have anything you thought about the Marshal?
Actually, I liked the Marshal character quite a lot. He played the spaghetti Western Marshal very well, I think. But yeah. he did care about his people, right? His priorities on stealing things is weird, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Not necessarily someone you'd want handy per se, like in terms of rations and munitions and all that in the middle of a zombie apocalypse.
Right. But I actually liked him. I liked how he was acted. I liked how he was willing to, work with the Mandalorian, not only, promising to give the armor back, but at the same time, he was willing to stand up to the Mandalorian because, he believed that the armor helped him the armor did help him save his people. Right.
Right.
So he was willing to go down. Right.
Right. Yeah. He was effectively disarming himself, for the sake of his people, for the sake of the greater good.
Right. But as far as his character in a vacuum by itself, I actually really liked it. And I liked that they didn't necessarily put pressure on him being a character in the future either. It's like, oh, I hope
Yeah.
we see each other again. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, they definitely left it open-ended. I don't feel like he was going to. I assume with Oliphant, we will see him again. He's a high-profile actor, and Star Wars, historically speaking, has been very guilty of milking high-profile actors when and where they can, and high-profile characters. But I also wouldn't feel it would be inappropriate if we never saw him again or didn't see him again for another season.
Right. He could come back in at any point in time for 10 seconds, and I think that would be fine, or not, and that would be fine, because I think they did a really good job of setting that up. It didn't force him to be tied to the Mandalorian in any way.
Yeah.
The story was concluded, right? It was done. That arc is complete. So he does not have a tie any further, other than maybe friendship or something like that.
Right.
A kinship, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this: you can definitely tell the personal growth that Mando, which I guess is another positive, has underwent since the first season, because he was much warmer at the end with We Are Marshall than he had been to characters. Like he thawed to the Marshall over the span of a single episode in ways that took like 2 or 3 episodes for the main character, for the supporting characters in the previous season. Like, I think he said the line, it was my pleasure, and offered his hand in a handshake. And when Marshall said, very earnestly, like, I hope we cross our paths, or we cross our paths. I hope our paths cross again. Mando very earnestly in response said, yeah, me too. He was like, yes, likewise, and for a stoic, faceless protagonist, with just those few combination of words, you could sense it was more than just a grudging mutual respect. There was sincere affection.
That's true. And I didn't really think about that, but that is a sign of growth, right?
Yeah. Normally you would expect, like, the Clint Eastwood character would just kind of like give a perfunctory nod and, dip out. But instead he was like, nah, you know what? I like you. So I thought that was good. And then I'll just say, I mean, I think for me, the last big thing on the things I enjoyed was, I think the Mandalorian, if this episode is any indicator, stayed within parameters of not being breakneck in speed, but also not being lethargic in pace. Like it was a brisk, it was like a fast walk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Except for when they were on the Banthas, then it was not a fast walk.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's hilarious. Now, I'll say this. You know what? That is the real, like, last positive thing. Mandalorian, whatever you want to think about it, is rife for satire. Like, there's so much potential for parody there. Like, when Seth MacFarlane, if he ever wants to do like a Mandalorian satire, there's a lot of material here, because you want to talk, they go from speeder bikes to walking around on the Bantha, and the Bantha is like shuffling awkwardly in a general direction of where they need to go, and I guarantee you they could have belly crawled there at twice the speed.
Right.
There's no telling. I mean, somebody probably celebrated a birthday between departure and arrival. But yeah, but it was there was some unintentional humor there.
Right. And that's fine, I think. It wasn't, nothing was forced or anything. It wasn't trying to be humorous necessarily, but you can look at it at a distance and be like, it's ridiculous that they have 6 of these things that are moving 20 miles per year. Right. And, going to and it just may be a limitation of the effects or whatever.
Yeah. I see. It's one of those things. I remember when I was younger, I used to really waste a lot of time. I mean, I guess any pursuit of fiction in and of itself isn't the most practical thing, right? Practical exercise. Right. But Star Wars is not hard science fiction. It doesn't operate on rules of hyper rationality or even indeed rationality a lot. It's supposed to be a fun popcorn flick, and that occasionally touches onto deep spiritual themes and stuff like that, and family drama. But kind of like we talked about during the season 2 trailer thing, that had the big metal boat in the ocean, and they were like net fishing. They were trawling for fish or whatever is in the ocean that they eat.
Right.
Is that practical? Is that commensurate with the technology level that we see in Star Wars? No, not really. I mean, like Star Wars, compared to a lot of other franchises, has pretty advanced tech, especially when it comes to travel. Like when it comes to travel, it blows away Mass Effect, Warhammer 40K, Halo, in the ability to, cross these interstellar distances. And that alone, the infrastructure, the rate of speed and all this stuff would indicate, right, that they don't need to do half the crap they do. The people in this galaxy.
Net fish because they could probably have something that does that for them, or grow
100%, right?
From a cell,
Right. But it's space fantasy. It combines elements of science fiction with elements of fantasy, and the riding the horse, in the desert, in a moody tone, or that's a staple of spaghetti westerns. And the bantha, unfortunately, is the closest thing, and it's an ugly ass horse, but it's the closest thing to an equine creature in that particular setting. So I get why they do that, right?
Other than a dewback, right?
Oh, was it a dewback?
Was that what the Imperials were using?
No, they were riding. Okay, so yes, the Imperials and A New Hope were riding dewbacks, because I think dewbacks have no fur. But
right, yeah,
Mandalorian. All right, but I thought you meant that Mandalorian was riding dewbacks. I'm starting.
No, I said other than. So
yes, yeah,
that would be the other animal they have on that planet. Maybe.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. So no, I mean, could I sit there and think, okay, why aren't the guys with speeders riding speeders, or the guys with jetpacks? Why are they riding speeders when they could use their jetpacks? Yes, there are all sorts of questions.
Or they're a mining operation, so they probably have some mining vehicles.
Oh my gosh, like yeah, yes. Well, and I'm sure that'll come up here in a minute too. But as long as it's not impacting the plot per se in a direct way, then I don't worry about it. Like
no,
like yeah. if the plot had been they needed to get somewhere within, a certain amount of time,
minutes, yeah,
right, and they tried to get there on Bantha, and they were either cutting it close or didn't make it in time, and that was a point of tension in the drama, then yeah, I'd be irritated, because I'd be like, you just should have charged your Prius jetpack, you know what I mean? Should have gone to a charging station, right? You had, you know what I mean? Like that's where the anachronistic technology gets on my nerves. But otherwise, if it's just like, hey, look, we're doing this because it looks kind of cool and is a bit of a throwback to a Western film from the 50s and 60s, then yeah, that's cool. Sure. It is funny, though.
Yeah, it is funny. But it did make a great shot. It pans out and they're on the dune, right, with the convoy of banthas and stuff. So right. I think it makes a good shot. So there's nothing
getting
wrong
passed
with it.
by snails. Snails were like, whoa, tortoises. We're like, hey guys, get out of the passing
slow lane, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean that's it for me. I don't really have a long laundry list of positives. There were like 3 or 4 like strong positive feelings or positive elements that made me not hate the episode. That thought it was a decent hour to spend, right?
Uh-huh.
But I'm not going to pretend that there was like 12 or 15 things that just blew me away. I mean, it really didn't. So do you have anything else on that front?
No, I think I'm good. I think we're ready to move on to the not so good stuff.
Yeah. And there again, I mean, I can't speak for you, but for me, there was nothing particularly egregious other than, I mean, all sorts of nitpicks that just jumped to mind, like the Gamorrean WWF or mixed martial arts, where the two Gamorrean fighters were swinging axes at each other. Sometimes the choreography looked weird on that. I don't know. I again, nothing egregious really stood out as far as that goes, other than, again, Star Wars seems to struggle with dialogue.
Right. And
nothing.
it continues. It continues here because it seems like the dialogue. There were some good moments, but a lot of the dialogue here was a little rough, a little bit.
Yeah, there is no standout prose or razor sharp dialogue. This isn't a Quentin Tarantino thing or whatever. There's not Aaron Sorkin. This is serviceable dialogue that I think Star Wars could do better than. But it's kind of par for the course. So other than that, I obviously not. Other than Timothy Olyphant as the Marshal, we don't get a lot of like rich, multi-dimensional, memorable characters, and there seems to be very little connective tissue to the previous season. And I'm sure a lot of us are wanting to see, what happens with the child's, what happens with the child's potential reunion with its own kind, and he's been quested to take him to. We don't see any Imperial presence, so Moff Gideon and the Imperial remnants aren't really involved. And even at the end, he gets the armor, but we don't see much by way. We don't see any real progress.
What is he gonna do with it? Like it doesn't take him any closer to the guy. Now, obviously, the guy's looking for the armor, but whatever.
Right.
But it doesn't take him any closer to his goal.
Right. It's just like kind of a MacGuffin. So yeah, I the thing for me is it reaffirms my impressions of the episodes in the first season and what I expect will be the case here, although I'm open to otherwise, which is that The Mandalorian at its best is a decent popcorn flick that has beautiful visuals, unremarkable characters, but not bad. And this is probably not something that I'll want to rewatch. You know what I mean? Like this particular episode, I'm not like, in all of our years of friendship, you know how it is. Even if something isn't what I would consider objectively good, if it's memorable, like Rise of Skywalker, which I'm sure eventually we'll discuss on its own. I think The Rise of Skywalker is in many ways a dumpster fire in the sense it's a hot mess and it could have been way better in a variety of ways. But there are memorable parts of that movie, particularly with regards to the Emperor, that I'm happy to rewatch again and again and again because it provides popcorn entertainment. The Mandalorian is just kind of like a steady degree of mediocre. Like it's decent. It's decent.
Yeah, but in that way, I don't think mediocre is necessarily a bad thing.
No,
it's just average, right? It's just average.
Right.
It has very good moments, and there's nothing like egregiously bad about most of it. So I mean, I think it's fine. It's got a niche that it's filling, and I think it's fine in that way.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't share the opinions of most critics and most at least vocal fans, who think it's the new Empire Strikes Back in a lot of ways, just in serialized television format. I don't think that. I think it's probably a net positive to Star Wars canon, again, because it's a low-key, more, intimate scoped story. And it's telling a different kind of Star Wars story. And I think all those things are net positives. And it's also introducing, like Taika Waititi and other established actors and directors and all these, bringing them into the Star Wars canon, and giving each episode, has a distinct visual flair to it and a certain cadence and a certain diction. And I think bringing, Jon Favreau and Taika Waititi and all these things, bringing these people in and giving them the reins over a 40 or 55-minute episode, I think that's a net positive too. But yeah, I'm not an obsessive. I'm not, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, like, it's not something that I'm going to obsess over. Like there are other aspects of Star Wars that I do. So yeah, I would say the dialogue, I would say, the lack of real traction in the overall quest. And I would just say that the Mandalorian himself is not, when you have a stoic, faceless protagonist, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but you have to supplement that with engaging side characters. Now, in this episode, it helped again that you had the Marshal played by Timothy Olyphant, right? But
right.
The Mandalorian in and of himself has not lived up to his potential as a memorable character other than, wow, he looks cool,
Sure.
So.
Sure. Yeah. So, other than that, I don't really, there's not really much more I can point out that's like super negative or anything. Everything would be just like little nitpicks, right? And
sure,
there's no point really.
No, I mean
that pretty
that's
much every single time. Yeah.
Right. That's anything, and it's tempting. I mean, you definitely clock them, right? I mean, every single, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, right. But you don't have to talk about them all the time because, it's not that big of a deal. And, this kind of feels like any one of, anything that Filoni does, the first 5 episodes of a season is going to be absolutely nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
And then ties into the rest of the story. So,
yeah, we'll I definitely understand why so many people are big fans of Dave Filoni. There again, mm-hmm. I think that, I don't think like he's this this messianic visionary for the future of Star Wars. But you can count on him to produce reliably entertaining material.
Sure, absolutely.
Especially when
more than you can say for some other Star Wars writers and stuff.
Oh my God, yeah, yep, yeah, 100%.
Let's just hope that he keeps the vision small scale, right?
Right.
Because he's going to bring in Ahsoka, who is like a secondary character from the main characters. So we don't.
Yeah, she's arguably, I would say, especially. I mean, she technically had her genesis, 4 years or so before the Disney buyout of Lucasfilm. So she was the last major contribution to the Star Wars mythology as a major character from George Lucas. In the 2008 Clone Wars CGI show. But she is the flagship character, secondary character of the Star Wars mythology of the last 20 years. So bringing her into live action, which I did hear you say they're reportedly doing, that'll be huge. And he does seem to bend over backwards, Filoni does, to not only keep her alive, but to involve her in every single thing. And I'm interested. I mean, like anything, I would prefer Star Wars have secular stories to it that are not about the Force and the Jedi. I mean, not everyone, right? But I want it to be like a 1-to-1. Every time you tell a Force-related story, I'd like you to tell a story that has nothing to do with it, just to keep it in balance. My fear is if she does show up, it will crowd out that secular component and make this just kind of more of the same. This is going to be Clone Wars 2.0 or Rebels 2.0. I hope that's not the case, but we'll see. Other than that, the only other thing I think that's worth noting is that at the very end of the episode, we see a huge Star Wars iconic character.
Just like the simulations.
Yes. The great Boba Fett. Or some sort of clone played by Tamora Morrison from Attack of the Clones.
Right, so we know at least he is a Jango clone of some sort.
Yep.
Right?
Or maybe, what if he is in fact Jango's reanimated corpse?
Yeah.
Think about it. He was only decapitated. So, I mean,
well,
Darth
to be
Maul
fair, Palpatine was only thrown down a reactor shaft that exploded, and
Yeah, he exploded like 3 times. Like, he fell down an elevator shaft into a reactor core, was vaporized in an explosion of dark side energy. Then whatever, like, atoms that were scattered by that were then scattered again when the Death Star exploded. But they didn't check for a body. Like that is
They
like
didn't check for a spirit either, apparently.
no. They should have like called the Ghostbusters and waved like that ectoplasmic wand around and
But
see.
don't cross streams.
Exactly right. See, now there's a good Ghostbusters reference. Or are you talking about tributaries?
Oh.
Well, anyway, but yeah, the point is, I mean, it's part of a Star Wars tradition now to resurrect characters that seem definitively dead. Darth Maul, of course, bisected. Right. Sidious was vaporized.
So we haven't had one that's been decapitated and brought back yet. So that would be a new one for them.
This could be Frank and Jango.
But it's
Django Stein.
It's Boba.
So, yeah, it's probably Boba.
It's probably Boba. Yeah,
it'd be hilarious if it was Captain Rex.
Yeah, I was about to say if it was anybody else, it would be because it's tied to Ahsoka, right?
Yeah,
it would be Rex, right?
Yeah,
but I think it's Boba.
Well, you may never know. They totally subvert expectations. They build this up like, oh my god, it's Boba. Oh my god, it's it's Captain Rex. Oh my god, it's Frank and Jango. And in reality, it's just some random clone trooper.
Yeah, like they're just zooming out, and there's just one that's alive, and then he never makes another appearance in any episode or anything.
Right.
That's it.
Yep. That'd be hilarious.
That would be hilarious.
But yeah, it's definitely setting up some potential friction there.
Right.
It's probably like, damn, I want my armor back.
How they handles it. We'll see how they handles it, guys.
Yes, well said.
I'm an
orator. The Hooked on Phonics lessons are doing extremely well for the both of us. We are so much more proficient than we were before.
All right. So overall impressions?
Give it a solid B-.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was thinking. That's where I was going to place it.
We'll do some remedial classes later, okay? That was a bit of a struggle for you. Okay,
so it really was. It was really a struggle. And I'm still
do your homework tonight.
B-. That's what I think. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yep. Yeah, no, and we'll see. Hopefully that's as low as the season gets, and we'll see even higher. At the bare minimum, I expect we'll see consistent output. First season was very consistent. I expect we'll get more B- material along the way, but if not, we'll call the balls and strikes as they come.
Yep, I look forward to the next episode, honestly.
So. Likewise. So, I guess that's it. Shout out to all 4 members of our audience, our bustling, bursting audience, our rides or dies, who have stuck it in there with us. What?
I said, thank you guys, all 4 of you.
All 4 of you.
Really appreciate your support.
Yeah.
Continue listening to 4 minutes of our videos.
Yeah. Just the first 4. It's all downhill after that.
And it starts off on a pretty steep slope down. So.
Yeah, really. It's like we like to consider ourselves a bit of a mudslide in terms of creative output. We'll definitely be bringing you back more Mandalorian dissections for Fictionology, as well as some other fun content along the way. Star Wars related, not Star Wars related. So keep a weather eye to the horizon. And like we always say, yeah, you were going there too. What do they always say, Bardikens?
I can't remember it. Go on.
It's like they say, sometimes the 2 suns shine on a womp rat's tail. And if any of you can figure out what the hell that's supposed to mean, please let us know. All right, everybody. I think it's time for us to head out. This is Fictionology out. Gideon signing off.
See you on the next one.
Bye.